Welcome to the Unmitigated Truth. After a long layoff, we're back in the saddle, folks. This is episode number 19, and I'm your host, DTM. Let's get to it. A lot has transpired in this past time. Let's first start with George Floyd. For those of you that don't know, he is a black man who was arrested by the police in Minneapolis, Minnesota. He went peacefully. They cuffed him. He took them to the middle of the street. Didn't even put him in the vehicle to take him to the station. They instead kneeled on his body, cut off his air supply, and sat there with knees on him and watched the man die. It took about 8.5 to 9 minutes. There was a crowd of people outside that stood around and watched, did nothing, videotaped, with the phone, took pictures, did nothing, said nothing, intervened nothing. The man died. That is not what the courts called it. The courts charged the officer in charge and charged the other officers that stood around and did nothing. The officer's name, Derek Chauvin. They charged him with second-degree manslaughter. But that's not what it was. Let's call it what it is. That was a lynching. That's what happened. The police in Minneapolis lynched an African-American man in the middle of the street in broad daylight in front of groups of people while being filmed without compunction. Didn't care. You know what a lynching is, for those of you who don't know? That is when a group of racist people, racist white people, decide to find a black person, an African-American person, and kill them just for the hell of it. And then they smile and laugh and go and eat in the park. It's called a picnic. And they have a bonfire and sing and play games and dance and do all those things. And that's basically what happened to George Floyd. Now, that's horrific. I don't even know if there's words that can express how terrible that is. It's egregious. It's maniacal. It's pure evil. Switching gears to the NFL and Drew Brees, the current QB of the New Orleans Saints, Drew decides that he's going to say, for people that are protesting brutality like I just explained, that if they do so during the national anthem, that's disrespectful to the flag. Really? I'm like, what flag are you talking about, Drew? Because the flag you're talking about, you get to go home and sit under your table with your wife and family and friends and neighbors and whatnot and eat and have a great time. If you get pulled over by a police officer because you're exceeding the speed limit, what happens after that? Oh, you may get a warning, maybe even a ticket, and you go home. What happens with guys like George Floyd or myself get in those situations? How about we're thinking about ways not to falsely trigger anger from this police officer so they won't kill us, so they won't brutally attack us and beat us up like they did Rodney King. How about that? How about every time we stop, we're praying to God that he steps in and intervenes so this officer won't lose his crap and start doing unmanner of horror, unspeakable horrors against us because he may or may not be racist. Then we probably have to pull over again a second time after the ordeal is gone, if we've survived it, just to breathe and calm the crap down. Okay? So what flag are you talking about, Drew Brees? Are you talking about the same flag represented by people that supposedly founded this country, that came over and killed and maimed and stole and looted and pillaged and raped Native Americans to get them off of land that they wanted, and then went over to Africa, Western Africa, and forced hundreds of thousands upon hundreds of thousands of Africans to come over to the United States and work as their slaves and indentured servants, which is really slaves, and then treated them like slaves? and killed them and lynched them and ripped their back and beat their moms and their wives and raped their moms and their wives and their sisters and their little cousins, and then sodomized the men and took them from their families and all this other stuff. You're talking about that same flag, the flag that represents all that. So people that protest police brutality is what? Disrespectful to that flag? Right? The flag where the same founding fathers that are people call founding fathers, like Thomas Jefferson and George Washington and John Adams and John Quincy Adams, actually had slaves in their house that they raped and kept in special rooms and brought like food and clothes and things too, so they could continue raping them over and over and over again, but brought gifts and try to make it seem like that's cool. Yes, you can't really leave because I'll kill you and your entire family, but if you stay, I'll treat you nice and keep raping you and having kids. You're talking about those founding fathers and that flag? Drew Brees has no clue as to what he's talking about. Charles Barkley is crazy for defending him, but the reason why Charles is doing that is because Charles is afraid that when he goes home, he's probably going to catch some flack from his spouse, okay? Okay, so that's Charles's problem. Charles Barkley needs to speak for Charles Barkley and not try to speak for all black people, because he does not represent all black people. He represents himself and the Barkley household. Charles, stay in your lane, okay? And I'm not just saying this just on a video as some internet tough guy, okay? I will say that to your face, all 6'4", 300 and some pounds of you. I don't care. Stay in your lane and only discuss Charles Barkley. You do not speak for Black America. Same thing with Tiger Woods. You do not speak for the African Americans in this country. You speak for yourselves. Let's keep it that way. This is episode 19 of The Unmitigated Truth. I am your host, DTM. Jesus Christ is Lord, and that is The Unmitigated Truth.